With Black Friday coming up, I thought it would be an interesting challenge to see if I could design an identity using only one color. So of course, we're going to choose black, and I'm going to try and design the identity from start to finish. Let's get into it. So let's have a look at the creative brief. And if you're interested in tackling this project yourself as a conceptual project for your portfolios, then check out the description below. You'll be able to download this brief and follow along. Let's jump straight into the brief and have a look at what we've got here. Okay, so our main objective for this is to create a visual identity for Licorice Lounge that showcases their unique personality and positions them as the go-to co-working space for creatives to express themselves and make great work. So we've got to do a primary logo and one or two alternatives. We've got to use a monochrome palette, and we've got to come up with a font selection. And we've also got to do a tote bag, an access card, and a water bottle. So this should be really, really fun. And I think we got a great opportunity to do some really great things with the color black here. Okay, so let's have a look at some of their core business goals. Okay, let's have a look at some of their goals. First, they're looking to increase the number of regular visitors. So they want to up the amount of people who go for monthly hiring plans. So people who hire the place out on a monthly basis. They want to up their social media game with refreshed identity and messaging. So we need to consider that this identity is going to be very present on social media. And they're wanting to introduce their merch shop. So the branding needs to work on multiple applications. I think this is where the tote bags and the water bottles, etc. come in. I'm also thinking at the back of my mind, this probably needs to work for signage. So we'll keep that in mind as well. And they want to increase brand awareness through social media, which is slightly different. So what they're wanting to do is actually educate as well. So font choices and things like that they're going to be able to use on their social media posts are really, really important. Okay, let's jump into having a look at a quick summary of the strategy. Again, keep in mind that real strategies and comprehensive brand strategies for businesses can look very different to this. And this is just a summary of some of the key aspects that we need to consider when designing a visual identity. It's not a comprehensive brand strategy, so please keep that in mind. Let's have a look at who they are. Founded by creatives for creatives, they're millennial designers. They wanted a place to be collaborative and individual. So they wanted that sort of, I've got my own space, but I can talk to others. And it was crowdfunded for the startup costs. So they've definitely validated the idea, and they know that people love it and they really want to be there. They're passionate about empowering creative thinking and entrepreneurship. Now, I'm also interested in their key audience: work from home creatives, restless designers who want to get out of the house, small creative and remote teams who only meet up every now and then. So this will work nicely for some of their like little huddle pods or something like that. They are creatives who need access to equipment, and maybe creatives who are just starting out and would like to meet others. What do? Well, they have monthly, daily, weekly renting options, etc. Please feel free to pause the video and actually read through some of these specifics, but I'm going to move through it quite quickly and get into the creative part of it. So keeping in mind that their character and personality is witty with a hint of sarcasm. So I'm picturing this person being quite smart, quick with their words, and sort of just one of those people that you like. Lots of jokes, very funny. Unapologetic, quality over quantity. Okay, so we've still got a premium look. We've still got a focus on quality that needs to come through here. Looking at character and personality, they're witty with a hint of sarcasm. So I'm picturing this person being very quick-witted with lots of jokes all the time. And maybe their social media tone is going to be very friendly, but also quite snarky. So maybe they poke fun at designers, and maybe it's sort of a big joke. They're quite unapologetic. Oh, but there's quality over quantity. Okay, so I'm noticing here that they are still wanting to focus on the premium side of things. So they don't want the branding to be too playful or too silly. They still want quality. So I'm looking at this sort of like creative director type who's always got a joke in his back pocket, but he takes his job quite seriously. So that's kind of how I'm picturing this. And I love this quote: "On Wednesdays, we wear black." So any Mean Girls fans out there will know, iconic. On Wednesdays, we wear black, not pink. So this whole concept is basically a play on the fact that designers, creative directors, art directors, etc. always get teased for always wearing black. I know in college, basically black was my uniform and it was all I ever wore. So I think that this is fitting. And I think as well, even though the name Licorice Lounge was transferred from a restaurant, which might work better, hence the food in the actual name, I think that licorice is one of those things that you either love or you hate. And it's one of those bizarre foods that, it's got a strange flavor and, it's not for everyone. And so I think that this is very true for creative people who are a little bit off the cuff sometimes and not always understood by everybody. If you're a creative, I'm sure you know what I mean. So I think it works, and so we'll carry on with that. Now that we know a little bit more about the brand, we can jump straight into the first process, which is going to be mind mapping, word bombing, and planning for our creative direction. So I'll see you there. Now, before you jump into doing any sort of logo design or any sort of sketching at all even, I want to encourage you as a designer to start off with a mind map. Now, this is my favorite way of shifting my brain from the logical problem side of things when I'm looking at a brief or trying to solve a problem for a client into the creative side, where I'm going to now start trying to come up with concepts that suit certain ideas. And you can do this with a pen and paper, or you can do it online. I use an app called Miro, so please check that out in the link in the description below, or a pen and paper. And honestly, I don't have a favorite. It just depends on how quickly my ideas are moving and what I have around me when I'm in that creative phase. So for today's video, we're going to be using Miro, and I've jotted down some ideas here. And this is my favorite way of getting all those ideas out and not really worrying about whether they're perfect or not or make any sense. So this is how I'm starting to explore all those concepts. So what we've got is we've got Licorice Lounge in the middle, and the immediate first thought that jumped into my head was an owl. And the reason why is because creative people are night owls. Not all of them, of course. We have the few like myself who now wakes up super early in the morning. Thank you to my child for that. But basically the concept was around night owls, and I thought about my early days in design. I definitely worked at night, and I was up all hours of the night, and I was just more creative at night. And so I thought it might be quite interesting to see, in terms of a symbol for the brand identity, to go with an owl. So I have night owls, often awake late. And then I'm sort of thinking, my next thought was, what type of font are we going to go with? Maybe a sans serif would be bold and modern, simple and to the point, of course. Then I contemplated, okay, but we could go to the serif display side and actually go for something that's a bit more dramatic, a bit more over the top. It gives that witty and comedic feel, something that might make them stand out, because I think design brands in general are a lot of these sans serif fonts, big type, etc. And it might be interesting to try something a bit different. And then, of course, their quality over quantity, they still want it to be refined. They still want it to be modern. And they are a bit more of a premium brand. So they don't want things to be too playful or too cold, but they definitely want things to be somewhere in the middle. I also thought of an octopus. This was another random thought that I had, and thought, okay, well, as designers, entrepreneurs, creative people, we're always juggling multiple different things. We've got our fingers in all these different pies. And so basically I thought, well, an octopus with its 8 arms might be quite cool, multi-dimensional. Often we have lots of different hobbies or something of that nature. And then I also thought an octopus might be nice for a co-working space specifically, because they often provide different solutions for different people. This one in particular has got its huddle pods, its boardrooms, its photographic studios, obviously great Wi-Fi connection and printing services, as well as refreshments like coffee and all of those things. So I thought an octopus with all of its, little tentacles might actually be quite a cool symbol. And it's also something that I can definitely envision printed on collateral, great icon, in terms of symmetry, the golden ratio, even looking at something like creating a perfectly symmetrical octopus, something like that. And then I also thought about Wi-Fi and connection, because one of the main reasons why people go to co-working spaces is for the Wi-Fi, usually, because great Wi-Fi is often expensive depending on the city that you live in. And Licorice Lounge would obviously be a really nice option for creative people looking to leverage Wi-Fi if maybe they don't have that resource at home. But I thought Wi-Fi could also symbolize connection between creatives. So we've got a symbol there that can represent quite literally connecting to creativity as well as connecting to others. And I thought another thought for me was actually to take this and connect Wi-Fi and connection to the various animal symbols as well, and seeing if there was a way to incorporate that. And then I'm also thinking witty and sharp. So these guys have got, you know, a very tongue-in-cheek voice. They play on words a lot. Look at me, I can't spell. So I'm thinking the logo definitely has to have a bit of a concept to it. I don't just want typography. I think we need an icon, because if I think about them wanting to apply stuff onto collateral, an icon is always a really good way to do that. And because it's a design brand for creatives, they're visual people. And so I think a picture of some kind will really create a good impact. And then I just had this sort of subtle thought, less is more. I don't want to cram too much into the logo. I still want it to be nice and simple. So with that being said, I've got my mind map, and what I do after doing this is I will jump onto something like Pinterest or Dribbble or Behance, and I'll start gathering visual inspiration off the back of this. The reason why I try and do a mind map first before I start looking for inspiration is because often it's way too easy to get distracted by all the things that are available online in terms of inspiration. And if I've got this in front of me, I've got a bit of a focus and I know what I'm looking for. I know that I want to see examples of tote bag design. I know I want to see some co-working space design. I know that I want to see how others have applied using black, maybe some visuals that might inspire creativity and collaboration. I'm really keen on having a look at some, typography techniques, possibly some inspiring quotes or something like that that connects. So it's already giving me a framework to look for inspiration that fits, so that I'm not spending hours and hours and hours looking for inspiration and just pinning and gathering everything that I find, because then my brain's way too overloaded and I've just got way too much to work with. So I've got my mind map. Now what I'm going to do is jump into Pinterest and see if I can start finding some ideas. Right, so jumping into Pinterest, I have gone ahead and pinned a bunch of different things, all to do with black and the type of design that I think might work for this brand. So I've had a look at some interesting quotes and some nice blind embossing, because if we're dealing with only one color, of course, blind embossing is a really cool technique for things like print materials, etc. for the brand. Also really good for signage. I'm kind of picturing this black sign with the words just sort of cut out, but also in black. So you get this very cool shadow effect. You can see that my brain jumps way ahead, but it also sort of comes back around and starts moving. And I think this is just normal for the creative process when designing. Don't fight it. I think if you have an idea, sketch it down. If you have a word, add it to your mind map. I think the reality is that our creative processes are always evolving and there isn't really a right or a wrong, but I have sort of fallen into a rhythm of working a bit like this and not really forcing myself to go into concepts just yet, but just pinning things that make me think of those various concepts. So I've also grabbed a little owl. I like this one because he's got his head tilted to the side and I thought that was a little bit different. I liked the sort of symbol of an 8 in there, and it made me think maybe I could do something interesting with the Wi-Fi symbol, because that's in the back of my mind. I love this. I also thought, okay, well, maybe we could go more on the playful side, but I did sort of discard that idea because I think it might just be too playful. I think they still want to be more on the witty and smart sort of side of it, a little bit sort of quick with their words, a little bit more sarcastic and less playful, if that makes sense. So I do think that that's not quite right, but I still wanted it there. I love this black, obviously. Something about this really inspired me because I was thinking about, the way creative minds shift and fit together like puzzles, but also I saw the Wi-Fi symbol in there. So I'm like really stuck on this idea. So I'm thinking about that. Really loved the clean typography here. And then of course, in a perfect world, I'm thinking that Licorice Lounge's work pods, this classic popular trend at the moment with our workspaces looking like these gourmet setups with these dark colors and black walls, and I'm thinking the dark wood, so and lots of plant life and things like that. So Licorice Lounge would definitely look like this. It would have this moody, very creative sort of feeling to it, and it's definitely not going to attract well, it might, but it's definitely for this type of designer who would have a space like this, if they could. And so it's a space to come and feel creative and feel inspired. I also find it quite calming, so I wanted to keep that in mind. I'm just looking at different inspiration here. I really like what they did with the type over here. I thought that was quite interesting. Loved this concept for signage, possibly. Just having a look at some layout options. Love this for what it means is like just the simplicity, but you've got that creativity. Tote bags. Good design is a language, not a style. Love that as a quote. So thought, tote bag or water bottle, really cool. Also really love this dramatic font. I'm very torn between the two fonts in terms of going, do we do sort of display serif or do we just do display sans serif in this sort of noise one? I'm not sure yet. We'll see what ends up happening with the final mood board. And then we've got some other ideas. Love what they did with this Misfits logo. But for me, my thought process is I'm going to go simpler type and I'm going to go for an icon rather than having all the emphasis on the typography. So the key is going to be finding a really nice font. Then this one is what inspired me for something like a photographer example. What if Licorice Lounge had a stationery set and you could buy a notebook and a diary and all of those things. And maybe lanyards and all sorts of interesting things that this brand could have in their merch shop. All black, of course. Love the wax seal. Love this blind embossing, glossing, spot glossing as well in terms of print techniques. So there's a lot here, and what I'm going to do now is pull them all together into a mood board. So I'll see you back in a few minutes. Okay. We are back and we've jumped into Illustrator to look at our final mood board. So these are some of the things I settled on with a couple of extras. So we've got our workspace, we've got some stationery design, we've got our paint swash, which I really like. I'm thinking the walls could possibly be done in like textured paint, but this is also something we could bring into the identity later on. Love the tote bag with the sort of the sans serif typography, but also love the serif. So I'm still in two minds and I'm wondering if there isn't possibly a way to blend the two and to kind of do something a bit contrasty and juxtaposition-y with the type. Not sure yet, we'll see. And then I've also got this, and even though we're supposed to only be using black, I do think there could be an inverted version of some of the stuff, so either in white or cream or something like that. And then I'm just looking at this symbol and this symbol over here. I love the lines and the way it flows together. This looks like an owl to me, so I'm thinking I might stick with the owl concept and the Wi-Fi concept and see if I can try and blend these two together to come up with a logo. So if you've gotten to this point in the video, I want to encourage you to pause, screenshot the mood board and give it a go to try and create an identity yourself without looking at what I do in the next couple of minutes. It would be really cool if you tagged us with your work so that we could see what you come up with. Right, let's jump into the next step, which is going to be sketching. And now I'm going to do that on my iPad, and this is my favorite way to sketch, using my Procreate app and my Apple Pencil. So I'm going to do some sketching based off of my mood board and some of those keywords that I came up with. And I think for the sketching process, it's really important to keep in mind that you're not aiming for perfect. And you'd think it would go without saying, but I do know that us as designers, especially me, I just want to get the perfect end result so quickly. I hate the wrestling with the concepts. I hate a blank canvas. I find it really intimidating. So with the sketching process, I just try to jump in and get all my horrible ideas out first and then see what happens after that. I already know I'm going to be working with a pre-chosen font, and I'm probably going to do some customization to it. So I'm not going to try and get the typography right in my sketching phase. What I'm just going to try and do is play with composition and see if I can work out that icon properly. So let's jump into my sketching phase and we'll see how it goes. All right, so I'm here with my iPad and I'm ready to jump in and do some sketching. Okay, it's been a little while and I have wrestled with sketch over sketch over sketch, some on my iPad and some just on pencil and paper. So what we've got now is we've got an idea that I'm pretty set on. It's this idea of trying to incorporate Wi-Fi and connection and the owl. Now, I think in reality, I'd definitely give quite a lot more time to wrestling with these concepts, but I'm fairly happy where this is at, and I do because I'm practicing and wanting to keep loose and have a bit of fun. I'm wanting to just see if I can make this work. So I stumbled across kind of a couple of ideas up here. I had my owl head and then try to kind of do a Wi-Fi symbol as the obvious thing, but started looking all kinds of strange. I love the shape of the owl with its open wings, but I've seen it done a lot before, and so I'm thinking maybe I can try something a bit different. I really tried to make this work, and then I thought, you know what, the thing that's missing from this is the eyes, because the owl's eyes are such a symbolic aspect of knowing that it's an owl. And so I wanted to come back to doing the eyes, and I started playing with these lines and went, but wait, this still looks like a Wi-Fi symbol, so I can still make this work. Came up with this little guy over here. And I really like this idea, whether he's just a head or whether he actually has a body too, I'm not sure yet. I haven't decided, but I thought I'm going to wrestle with this and see if I can pull together a sort of a digital version of this little head. So I've pulled it into Illustrator over here, and I think because of the shapes and everything like that, I'm definitely going to want to try and get it into a square. So I've got myself a little perfect square here, and I'm going to try and design in that square. Now, if you're wanting to set yourself some guides, you can turn anything into guides on Illustrator. So all you have to do is basically click your shape, and then all you do is you go up to view and you go to guides here, and you go make guides, and it turns into a guide. So now you can turn it on and off and hide it, and I know what I'm working with. The next thing I think I'm going to do is basically take just so that I'm working with only this one, is I want to just take a screenshot of that, and I'm going to pull it back into Illustrator here. Just make this a bit smaller, obviously. Okay, make it a bit smaller so that I can fit it into my square. And what I want to focus on first is the head. So I just want to do the head at this stage and see if I can get that right first. So I'm going to drop the opacity and I'm actually going to lock it. You do that hitting Command 2. And now I'm going to start bringing in my shapes. And whereas I think it's looking very cool to use perfect grids and structures and things like that, sometimes it's better to optically align things. I, for one, am a little bit of both. I enjoy a good grid with some guidelines and things like that, but I also enjoy the flexibility of just doing it as what looks right. So the first thing I'm going to jump in and do is grab my pen tool, because I want to create a perfect shape here where I have my curve. So I know, okay, that's not going to work. Oh, maybe I'm just pulling it in the wrong direction. Nope. Guys, I've suddenly forgotten just how to use the pen tool, you know. Let me try something else. So another trick as well, and you guys will all know that it's all the rage at the moment, is our lovely pencil tool. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take my pencil tool options and I'm actually going to pull them right up. And I'm going to adjust these settings so that I can end up with something that's really smooth. I'm going to give it a stroke, up that a bit. Okay, cool. That's all right. I'm not loving the angle of this guy. I think I might want him to be more like that. I'm just going to sort of lay down the foundation for the first version of this and then just go from there in terms of working it out. Okay, now that I've sort of fiddled a little bit with the logo, we've got something here to work with, and I must say I'm quite enjoying this, and I think that it's really coming together a little bit. So what we are going to play with now is working out how to get it to fit with the various typography examples. So I'm just going to jump back to my mood board here and I'm going to have a look. So like I said, I'm a bit unsure as to whether I want to go sans serif or serif. And I've actually pulled a couple of fonts out here and have been playing with some interesting ideas. I think I really like the bold look. I just really want to step away from doing something that's really obviously modern and it looks like a tech brand, because I think that that's not going to work. I love these sort of like bold serif display fonts. I think there's something really cool going on. Love that this one has got all of these crazy ligatures on it, and there's something really cool about that. So I really want to explore this. I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to work with yet and exactly how I'm going to tie the two together. I do think I'm going to stick with just the head of the logo for now. And what I did is I created a black and a white version. You'll see the black version is a bit more broad, and the white version has actually got a bit of a stroke removed from it. And I do this when translating the white versions of the logos, because if you were to take this, for example, and turn it white, you'll see that because of the way we optically see things, it just doesn't look right, but it looks great when it's in a dark color. So this is something to keep in mind when doing logos, that you want to keep in mind it's got to work on all background colors, etc. And it's okay to have a variation of the logo that's been adjusted to work perfectly in that context. It's okay to do that. It means that you've sort of thought things through. The logo file does not have to be absolutely identical for every color. So that's something just to keep in mind. Obviously, you then export that correctly. So now I'm just wrestling with the typography, and I actually did this rough version where I adjusted the profiles of the actual owl to look a bit different, because I'm just thinking maybe, I'm going to actually just rotate this, I think. Let's have a look at it. Because I'm thinking if I go with a font like this, then having a typically modern icon that's monoline, for example, is not going to fit with this. So I thought maybe we could go for like a bit more of a dramatic look, and I'd fix up the beak and all that. It's also quite interesting, like in terms of how it looks, but I'm still not connecting to it totally. So now I've got this other font, which I'm going to look at. And I am going to look at the sans serif version, especially going to just have a look at what it looks like in lowercase as well, and see if there's something I can do there. I might put this sort of into left align and then just bring this in and see. I think for me, like, even though I think this works stylistically, it doesn't feel right for the brand. I feel like I'm losing a bit of personality. So I'm wondering if we shouldn't actually look at bringing in the body of the owl as well, because I'm wondering if we don't just maybe need it as part of the, so let's see here. Okay, so I need anchor points. And I don't necessarily want that to be where the anchor point is. So let's do that line again. There we go. Do I want all round? I'm not sure. Oh wait, I'm not reflecting the anchor point. I'm reflecting the whole line. So there we go. And then I think I'm going to use the pencil tool to do this. It goes out a bit. Look, I know that this is not actually what an owl's tail looks like. They're actually more like this, interestingly. So let's try that. Did he copy? Okay, so this is interesting. It's not quite aligned, but it's okay because I can take these and move them up slightly so that that fits. And then I think we need a line like that. And maybe for these internal lines, we just cut off the edges so that they don't overlap like that. I'm gonna copy that dude. There we go. And I think for these guys, I'm also going to cut off the edges. I'm going to take these two anchor points and just join them. I did that by clicking Command J, by the way, if anybody's interested. And then I'm going to round that out. Okay, we're getting there, I think. Now let's do the wings. Okay, I'm happy with that. Let's cut the, yeah, maybe that is going to work best. Now instead of, I'm just going to draw this shape before I fit it in with the other wing. Because I'm wondering, no, I think they must be joined. Okay, I can leave that like that. This little anchor point needs to move. And the reason why I'm kind of playing with this is because I just want to see if maybe adding a bit more to the body of the actual owl, oops, let's just pull that back in, is going to help in terms of how it looks. Now, I don't totally love that. It looks a bit like a butterfly wing, but okay, so if I now copy this and bring it down here, and we just have a look. I just want to see what he looks like without his wings, maybe. And what if we just did something like this, reflected that, and just did, so its wings are just sitting. That's not a bad idea. Like, you know, we've got him like sort of sitting. I do think he's just a bit big. Like as a logo, that's quite a large icon. And I'm also sort of seeing a face and a head with a crown on it. So I'm going to discard that. I did like the idea of testing it out though. And I do think like as I scroll around, this is just striking for me. So I think it's working nicely. You've got the little Wi-Fi symbol in there, got the little eyes. You know, I mean, I'm starting to see all sorts of other things as well, but I'm not going to overthink it. And I'm going to just sort of, okay, wait. I'm not going to overthink it. I'm just going to sort of go with it. I just have to decide how to stylistically marry these things. And so this is an interesting challenge, is that, you know, stylistically, often we can come up with an icon and we can come up with a way of designing something. And actually there's just, you know, then we have to wrestle with the typography and the logo mark. And I find that a lot of designers, especially in the early days, sometimes don't get this marriage right between the type and the icon. There has to be a stylistic synergy between the two. Otherwise, it just looks like you've done an icon and you've chosen a random font and you're trying to make them fit together. So for me, it's going to be about trying to find a way to make these two fit together, if they fit together at all. And we might end up just doing something simple where, you know, maybe the logo is just really basic and we bring in some other elements for the design. So let's jump back to our artboard, our mood board here, and have a look at some of the inspiration. So I think something I really like about the sister logos, I can see the S's have been turned upside down. I also really like this font. I think it's really nice and simple. I am just worried that it's a bit basic, but in the effort of doing something interesting with the graphic styling and like some, possibly some pattern work or something like that, I think I'm going to try and keep the typography really simple. So we've got these two little dot design elements here, which I'm really liking. And I just like this. It's really speaking to me in terms of pattern and flow and creative thinking. So I think I might stick with this, and maybe we'll bring that other font in as a supporting brand font, you know, something really fun and exciting. I like the sort of like slab serif look that they've got going on the eye. So I'm wondering if we can't do something interesting on that front. So we really need like a nice basic font here. And I think we are probably going to need to, like I said, left align things. I kind of just had this idea of doing it centered though. And I like the look of this. I'm just wondering if maybe bold, but smaller. And then I wonder, like, is that too much? Like, and then I was wondering about actually making the logo smaller and building kind of like a crest look, like making it look quite regal. I think there was something on the Pinterest board a little while back. So let's jump. Oh, this 11 one that I really liked with this type. Okay, so that's gone sans serif, but they've added something cool to the E. So, oh, I wonder if we shouldn't add little ears. Just thinking about doing something cool with this. Now, already I think that this is too rounded. So I'm wondering if we take him out and we get our outlined version back. And instead of working with round, maybe we do cut the edges. Okay. And then I'll edit this, I think. We've got to go for something a bit more square. So let's duplicate him. Okay, and let's just outline this text. So we're going to expand and fill. And then I'm just going to go to my Pathfinder and blend this. Okay, cool. So let's move our little outlined version out of the way. And let's bring our sort of more square duty in. Now, I was thinking about doing some sort of crest. Now, I'm wondering if, going back to our little one with the body, if maybe instead of having the tail, if we just had like the bottom part. Obviously, now I'm going to have to try and make this match. Does that look weird? It like kills it a little bit, doesn't it? You're probably all shouting at me. Okay, but this is the thing, right? Like we're just testing stuff. Let me join this again, Command J. What if I rounded this? Does that make him look too round? Maybe he's not playful enough then. Is that better or is that worse? Like I don't know. I want to try something quickly. I'm just trying to think about adding like, look, typically good logos don't have stuff just added to them for the sake of it. Like you just don't do that. Okay, that's starting to look too much like a maze. And I'm losing the Wi-Fi concept and I'm missing some of the edginess of just keeping him like that. Okay. I think we're just going to keep him like that. Let's go back to that Pinterest thing and just have a look here. Okay. So I think this font might be a little too like upstandy. So I'm wondering if we go for something, okay, maybe not quite that bold, but we go for something a little bit more. Guys, I'm struggling here. Okay. So what if we then had, I do like the idea of possibly giving the type is to look a little bit more like the owl and to give it that little visual interest. I'm also thinking, okay, I'm going to do some stuff to this type quickly. Wait, I've moved him out the way the wrong way. Okay, let's go type, create outlines. I do like this font. I think it's going to work. It's a little bit more in line, but without having it be too typical. I think I want to create some space here because, you know, like whenever I think, okay, but I want to actually have this line be followed. Okay, so I'm just using my shape builder tool to pull this out here. Do you think that looks too, see now that looks too surfer brand. See, I don't like it. Okay, well, maybe I could add that angle in here. Okay, yeah. okay, cool. There's a cool idea there. This just is not sharp enough, so I'm gonna pull that up. Okay. All right. What I am liking is the idea of using this little dot. So I just want to pull him out, and to balance this, I'm just thinking something like that. And then I do think we need something, because I'm keen to create like that sort of dramatic look. And I love the idea of, you know, an established date in a logo is definitely a trend thing. Like, I know a lot of brands are doing this at the moment, and it can tend towards being a bit overdone. But the reason why I like it is because it really adds like just a bit of richness to the logo. And what I'm really aiming for here and what I'm trying to create is I'm really just trying to blend modern with creativity, and I don't want to go totally over the top with like a font like this. Although I am just going to do a little test quickly. Let's see, do we have a slightly bolder version? No. What happens if I take this guy and move him out quite a lot? Are there glyphs for this guy? No. Which is this font that's got all these glyphs? I just want to check. So this is Desire. Okay, cool. So let's just try this with that one. Oops, not that one. Look, that on its own is very freaking cool. Let's just have a look at maybe just doing it with the L. Okay. Look at all these glyphs. This is ridiculous. So, I mean, when you're designing with like a cool font like this, it's really epic to just explore the glyphs. I love the idea of a bigger E and a bigger... Sure, that's quite cool. Oh, there's something... Wait. There's something cool happening here. Might be a little too fantasy, but try type it out as like a... I wonder if they don't actually give you like a big version of the E. Okay, well, we've got that version. And what we can actually do is manually make it bigger. Let's see what happens when we take this across and just see. What I'll probably do is make him a bit smaller then. No, we don't want to do that. See, I'm missing some of the weighting customization on that. Look, I do like that look, but I think we're a lot closer with this one. So I'm going to keep working on this one. All right, now that I'm more or less happy with the logo, the first thing I'm noting is that I've lost a little thingamajig on one of the L's. So this is not my, here we go, here's my final logo. Okay, so now that we've got our final logo and we're more or less happy with where it's at, I am noticing that there's probably some things that I can fix. I'm noticing the curves here aren't exactly perfect, but I think I'm happy enough to move on and test the concept on colors and mockups. Now, when I say colors, obviously we're working with a monochrome palette here, so we're not monochrome, so we're not wanting to add too many colors. So what I did instead was I pulled the logo over here down into my grayscale. And so what I've got is I've got a deeper black, I've got sort of a charcoal gray, a lighter gray, and then of course white. And I've also tested what it looks like over the top of imagery. So my idea here is really just to test the sort of the transparencies and to have a look at the different contrasts, and I'm really liking how it's looking so far. So coming down here, we are testing the logo on a monochrome palette. So what I've got is I've got a deeper gray, a more charcoal gray, light gray, and then of course white. And really what I'm doing is I'm just testing contrast. I'm testing how the logo applies over each of those colors and then also onto a photographic background. relevant to the brand, of course. So I'm seeing this as being very moody, very dramatic. So we've got our Monstera leaves, but in black. Also, Monstera leaves work perfectly for this audience because they are plants that are very well loved nowadays. And with everybody moving towards wanting to look after plants and have plant life in their lives, I thought, well, that's definitely relevant, but how can we make it on brand? Well, black. So we've got that working nicely over there. Also, another point is that this is a key example of where I have made use of the logo in its different weightings. So you can see that there's a very subtle difference here between the one that is meant to be displayed in the dark tone versus the one that's in the white. And you can see that I've intentionally taken out some of the weighting of that. So when I export my logos, the lighter versions like the gray and the whites will be this thinner version, and the darker tonalities in the deep gray will be, or the deep black will be in the slightly thicker weighting. And like I said earlier on, it's really important to think about these things because the logo must work visually and optically as well as, functionally in terms of have you gridded it out properly and all of that stuff. And that's all good and well, but if it doesn't look right to the human eye, then it's just going to bother people. So with that being said, I'm seeing already that there's some small issues that need to be fixed on this logo. But for now, I'm happy with it and I think that it's going to work. So the next thing that I'm exploring is different layouts and ways to interpret the brand in terms of collateral. So I'm thinking, well, we definitely want some cool quotes that, apply to the design and creative world. And then I'm thinking that I want to use this little Wi-Fi aspect of the logo symbol or the icon or the emblem into some art direction. I want to use the Wi-Fi symbol as part of the art direction for the brand. So the visual tools and things that we use. So I've extended it hugely and masked out an image, which makes a really nice sort of poster look. And you get these sort of waves that come across, and then obviously the little badge is used there. And then what I went and did was sort of started to test kind of how this would look against some of the imagery that I was looking at as well in terms of the super moody look. I'm thinking as well if the brand has a merchandise line that, everything would be black, of course, and how that would actually end up translating and how it would look. I then went ahead and downloaded a bunch of mockups because one of the best ways to present the brand to a client or to showcase or to even test for yourself how well these visual tools work for you is to actually download some mockups and implement how they look. So going back to the brief, we knew that we needed to do access cards, a water bottle, and we also needed to do some stationery and things like that. So we have got a couple of different mockups that I downloaded, and I've jumped into Photoshop over here. Now, Photoshop is what I use for mockups mostly. There are a couple of other tools out there for you at the moment that you can use mockups on, but I'm a bit of a diehard Photoshop mockup fan. And so when I download my mockups, which I get from a number of different resources, I jump into Photoshop and actually start playing around with certain designs. So I was messing around with the access card design here, and I kind of wanted to add something a little bit special to them. And I know that the brand is very tongue-in-cheek and sarcastic, so I knew that the copy was going to be important as well, so I wanted to play with that. I'm with them. Then it's just got names and maybe the student access or student access, listen to me. The member access, and then what that actually is so that they can get into the venue. And then you've got that little Wi-Fi symbol again. And then the next thing I was doing was pulling together some brand stationery. Now, the interesting thing is it's not always relevant for every single brand. Personally, in my experience, not every brand comes to me wanting things like a letterhead and a business card. A lot of the times the brands I work with are in the digital space. On the hospitality side, we obviously do a lot of print materials and things like that. So I always think it's good to test whether the brand will work But obviously, don't go and show your client markups that aren't relevant to their company. So if they are a digital brand, there's absolutely no point showing them a markup for something like a t-shirt if they're never going to have a t-shirt. It just doesn't make any sense, and it creates an immediate disconnect, and the client's going to feel like you haven't listened. So for this brand, it makes sense that they're going to have something like a letterhead, maybe for membership acceptance or for newsletters that need to go out to the members, or letters that need to go out, sort of something more official, a notebook, part of their merchandise, and then maybe it's like a thank you card or something like that. So just wanted to see what that looked like. Of course, all black, matte black. And these mockups are really great because all you have to do is sort of go into your various layers and edit those settings. The next mockup I'm looking at doing is obviously our water bottles, and I've used one of our On Wednesdays We Wear Black quotes, which I thought was really funny and is going to also relate to the target market really well. Now, disclaimer, I would need to check whether a phrase like that could actually be used on a brand like this and to make sure that there aren't any trademarks around the phrase or anything like that. But for now, let's assume we're good to go. So we've got the little logo emblem over here and the website address right at the top. The next thing I wanted to see was this blind embossing spot UV effect with the logo. So we've got that going on here. Loving how it's looking. I really think that it's great. And the funny thing is that I don't know if this has ever happened to you guys, but I was delighted by the realization when I looked at this markup that this section of the logo actually looks like a pen. It looks like the point of one of those pens that you do sort of calligraphy with, or sign writing or something like that. And loved the sort of connection to design and creativity as well. So that was a happy accident. And sometimes this will happen in your logos. You know, you'll see things that weren't there before. And obviously sometimes you'll see things that shouldn't be there as well. But, you know, I then also just wanted to try a slightly different ID card design as well, and actually ended up preferring this one to the first one. And I think this is key. So when you're creating mockups for client presentations and things like that, give a try to a few different ones. Pick the ones that showcase the concept the strongest and really give the client the idea of the story you're trying to tell with the brand. So here I've got this pattern that is built out of the little Wi-Fi symbol on the owl's head, and I've just made those cool interlinking connections, which to me talks about creativity and pathways and all sorts of interesting things. So we've got that pattern as an extra brand asset. So that about wraps it for the presentations. Now, in a presentation to a client, just a reminder to, before you just show them a bunch of mockups, you want to make sure that you're talking them through your decision. So you want to revisit the strategy and you want to go over those things and those decisions that you made early on in the process, so that when they see the identity, it's not necessarily a massive shock, but it's a nice surprise because it's aligned with what they wanted in the beginning, and it's aligned with those strategic decisions, and you can justify creatively why you've made those choices. So that about wraps it on the identity using just black. You can let me know down below in the comments whether you think I nailed it or totally failed it. And do remember to check out the Black Friday promotion happening on the Flux Academy website. All of our courses and everything are on sale, so please check that out. We are so excited to welcome you into the courses, and let us know if you have any questions down below, and if you want to see more videos like this. That's it for me. Cheers.